Hey, welcome back. I know I'm a bit late to the party, but I wanted to talk about some of the cool stuff going on for the 12th anniversary event in the context of my free-to-play PvP account. I actually recorded all this a while back, but accidentally had my microphone turned off the entire time, so I'm trying to do it again. The first thing I want to talk about, and the reason we're starting out on the ground, is the account bank. All accounts now have access to 20 slots of the account bank, and critically, the ability to store EC here. The account bank has a cap of 1 billion EC. Free-to-play accounts have a character limit of 15 million EC. Any EC earned over that threshold just evaporates, so I was close to that limit thanks to the EC gained from Endeavor and Recruit event boxes. At that point, I was just buying items that retain value, like lockbox weapons, basically just to store EC so that I could sell them or trade them later. Now, thanks to the account bank, I can transfer items and EC between characters and store much more. I'm still limited in that I can't buy anything priced over 15 million EC on the exchange, but it does open up enormous potential for trading. More on that when we get to the build changes. The next thing is the T5 and T6 ship coupons. I originally was going to use my fleet ship modules that I got from doing my tier 6 reputations, but this opens up some amazing possibilities that I didn't have before. I also use this account to test things, and thanks to recent event ships and giveaway codes, I have a ship with every specialization except pilot. To solve this, my plan was to use my fleet modules to grab the Reliant Cruiser, which has a Lieutenant Commander pilot seat and a pretty decent BOF layout for a PvP build. The only other options were the Shran, Akira, and Tavaro, but none of those are quite optimal because they all have too much tactical seating to make good use of. So now with a T6 token in hand, I started weighing out various options. I've had a number of people ask me to set up a free-to-play science build, so that was a priority too. I'd considered grabbing the Somerville for the trait Spore-Infused Anomalies, and while not optimal, the ship itself is definitely usable in PvP and sports an intel seat which can be very useful. My original plan was to build a Tychon's Rift Drainer, but I'll go into more details as to why I decided against that in the science build video. It took me over 2 weeks to decide what ship to go with, but I finally pulled the trigger and I picked the Andorian Chimesh. There are 4 reasons why I chose this ship. First, it is full pilot spec, which also gets me those sweet barrel rolls which gives me some damage immunity. Second, it includes a very useful experimental weapon, the Alliance Hyper Cannon. This isn't the best experimental, but radiation damage, fast recharge, and decent procs make it surprisingly good in PvP, and either way it's a massive upgrade to the Ion Stream Projector or Flak Shot weapons that I had before. Third, it is fleet grade right out of the box, meaning it has 11 console slots right out of the Zen store. This means I don't need to use a fleet ship module to get the fleet version of it, and any other characters that I have on this account can use this ship out of the box now at T6X. The disadvantage to it not having a fleet version though is I never could have gotten this ship if not for the free T6 coupon. Fourth, it has a very desirable trait for my science PvP build, Improved Gravity Well. This causes gravity wells to last 40 seconds instead of 20, and for those who aren't aware, the aftershock gravity wells from the duty officer also benefit from this duration increase. Since I chose to use Gravity Well on that build, this trait will be a huge benefit to that one, once I get around to completing it. In terms of other account updates, there was an upgrade weekend recently and I opened about 100 Phoenix boxes right in a row and I got an epic token. It's too bad the Rycian Corvette isn't available from the Phoenix store, but there are still a few ships in there I'd like to have, so I grabbed the Plush Trawl Raider which comes with the awesome trait Cold Hearted. The other big news is thanks to the account bank change, I was able to accumulate around 20 million EC. Coupled with a few Pulse Phaser beam banks I had from before, I traded that for an Aux to Sif Placate DOF listed on the exchange for about 40 million. So you'll notice I'm space poor again, but now I have the extremely effective Aux to Sif DOF, something I never thought I would have on a free-to-play account. I also have a Temporal Recruit, and some of the next steps for this build depend on that. I plan to use improved critical systems and superior pedal to the metal when I have those unlocked. Once that character's reputations are completed too, that will also unlock ultra rare quality gear for the whole account. I plan to move this ship to a dual beambank setup, ideally being 3 targeting link phaser banks and the Discovery wide-angle phaser along with Lorca's fire controls console. That will be a healthy boost to forward damage, but it'll take a while to get all those pieces in place. So let's jump into the build, and I'll try to keep it a bit shorter this time, just focusing on what has changed since the High Rodent Hunter build. I'm still using the same weapons for the moment, Agony phasers from the Mirror event, and the Piezo Polaron from Lucari Reputation, with 2 phaser Omnis in the rear. The experimental weapon is the Alliance Hypercannon because that's the best that I have available. 5 Colony Protomatter tactical consoles provide the bulk of the healing to keep this build alive. The other consoles are mostly the same. Fluidic Phase Decoupler and Molecular Phase Inversion provide good escapes from trouble. Parasitic Ice and Hostile Acquisition are good ways to cause problems for my enemies. Hull Image Refractors provides me with a massive amount of temporary hull, and a Pax Triburnium and a free Neutronium alloy get me some additional resists. I still would swap in Picard Maneuver or Tachyon Detection Grid depending on who I'm fighting and what they're using. The biggest change from my previous build is the equipment. I'm still running the competitive 3-piece set for the bonus energy resist it provides, but now I'm accomplishing that with the shields, engines, and deflector, and instead using the temporal warp core. The reason for this change is that the temporal core, as well as the delta core if you prefer, gives us a trajector jump, which can be used every minute and a half. This jump gets us away from gravity wells, out of parasitic ice, and others, so it's just one more way to get away from controls. The previous setup with the competitive core and Jem'Hadar deflector is still perfectly viable, and I'd swap to that in a situation where I'm dealing with more stealth targets. Lately, psi control builds have been dominating PvP though, so another escape is very useful. Last time, I didn't talk much about the skill tree, but here's how I'm set up for now. There are a lot of choices that are debatable here. I think anytime you choose the 3rd point in any given path, you should really think about if it is worth it or not. For example, I didn't take the 3rd point in energy weapon training. It's only a 7.5% Cat 1 damage difference. Is that really worth using a whole skill point for? On the other hand, I spent that 3rd point in hull capacity for only 4.5% more hull capacity, so different priorities will dictate different choices. I also put all 3 points into hull restoration, but this does not benefit the Protomatter consoles at all, so this is really a waste for a build like this. Since I'm not sure what other builds I'll be doing on this account though, I filled that up anyway just in case. EPS Flow I chose because it affects the regen speed if you get drained. Spore-infused anomalies, for example, is a drain. Once cleared, my power levels return to normal much more quickly than if I didn't choose these points. There is some bad info floating around about this one. EPS got mangled in the skill revamp a few seasons ago, and it does not affect the amount of weapons power regenerated after firing weapon. I put 3 points into Impulse to keep my speed and turn rate up as best I can. Again, the last point here is only 6%, so it's maybe not worth it. I also filled up all of the control and drain points. Even for non-psi builds, I would recommend this. Although drain infection is pretty terrible, so if I ever respec, I'd use that point somewhere else. I only have 1 point in accuracy. It would help to have 2 here, but 3 is probably overkill. So many players overcap accuracy that defense is almost a waste, so I didn't bother putting any points in there either. I took all 3 points in resist to help my survivability. I don't think damage control points really make a huge difference since I'm the type of player to stay in combat as long as possible. Maybe they would be more useful for someone who exits and rejoins combat frequently. Shield regeneration is also such a tiny amount that I can't really see much of a case for it. But I did take 2 points for 17% of shield hardness. That helps reduce damage to shields. Generally when it comes to PvP, shields don't matter that much, but you never want to have 0 shields because it makes you more susceptible to kinetic and physical damage, and this helps with keeping them up. I put 2 points each in weapon amplification and weapon specialization for more crits, but I didn't think the 3rd point added very much. I put 1 point in each power, and then all 3 points in EPG in preparation for my upcoming science build rather than for this build. Long-range targeting sensors is useful, and interestingly, one of the few skill choices that does not scale down as you move up. It's a 10% reduction in the range penalty each point. I also took 1 point in hull penetration so I can do a little bit more damage when I hit. For the top level choices, I picked warp core potential and efficiency. I always run my builds with 2 of the power levels at minimum. In this case, weapons are maxed, engines are next to max, so shields and aux are both set to 15, the minimum power. This choice gets me an extra 10 power for each of those minimum powered subsystems, 20 power total, and that's pretty good to keep those systems from dropping off if I get drained a little bit. Shield mastery and shield absorption are a critical choice. I wouldn't run any PvP build without this. It negates an incoming critical hit, but also converts that hit into an instant shield heal. With the high damage of most PvP ships, this basically means every 20 seconds your shields are completely refilled. As you know, I'm all about team play, so I also have all 3 points in coordination protocols. These stack with other players in a team and gets us a lot of useful bonuses. The other change from last time is that I've completed the Strategist specialization, so I'm now running Miracle Worker as my primary and Strategist as my secondary. This is mainly for Miracle Worker's no risk, no reward, which increases incoming healing up to 30%, coupled with Strategist's Show of Force with Threatening Stance turned on, which gives us another 20%, for 50% total incoming healing. That includes the healing we get from the tactical consoles, so that means if we would have been healed for 5,000 HP, we're now getting 7,500 instead per tick. That's a huge difference. I'm still working on the pilot tree, not to use actively, but for the trait that unlocks Pedal to Metal, which will get me some bonus damage. Thanks to the Elite Captain token, I have another trait slot to play with, but I still don't have a ton of high-end traits yet. I've mostly been searching Space Trait in the exchange and just buying the cheapest ones. Since last time, I've added Give Your All, which is obtained from getting your Engineering R&D school up to level 15. This 20% of dodge damage is after resist, so it's actually a pretty good amount of damage reduction. Pseudo Submission is still a great one to have, especially for more hectic fights. I got this one for around 10 million EC. I see recently they've been as high as 40 or 50 million, but give it some time and watch the exchange. I'd really like to get my hands on Self-Modulating Fire next. For Starship traits, thanks to that epic token, I've added Cold Hearted. This trait stacks 5 times and reduces a target's speed, damage resistance rating, as well as their maximum power setting. This is a top tier trait and very, very good. Concealed Repairs is still here, activated by our Placate. I'd consider dropping this one once I can get some more damaging traits instead, but for such a cheap trait, it's very good. I've added Critical Systems. Eventually this will be the improved version, but I still have a ways to go on my Temporal Recruit. I've also unlocked Improved Unconventional Tactics, but I'm not using it, and the reason for that is that it's based on activating Brace for Impact. Brace for Impact applies a tiny hull heal for 10 ticks. This could actually be a huge detriment, because if I have 20 stacks of temporary hull, each stack say 5,000 in size, and I hit Brace, it will replace 10 of those stacks with the tiny 225 HP stacks. That's probably not worth it for the cost of just a bit more outgoing damage. Overwhelming Force is still here, but it isn't really doing very much for this build. Maybe some lucking timing might make it harder to activate an intel team or decloak someone near my main target, but they're such fringe cases, this will be one of the first ones to be replaced once I have better options. Pilfered Power was cheap, so it stays for now, also one that probably could be replaced soon. Retaliation from the Paladin gets us some added crit and damage, but again, another one that's just here because it was free. My tentative plan is to add Pedal to the Metal and Predictive Algorithms once I have the superior versions. That will be 30% bonus damage and 30 more accuracy rating, both very beneficial for this type of build. I'm also interested in the new trait, Carrier Wave Shield Hacking, but it's still a bit too expensive for me. Usually new stuff like that stays inflated a bit, but it'll drop down to around 1 million in a few weeks, so I'll grab a copy then. For reputation traits, I'm sticking with Dyson targeting systems and precision for some added crits. The Dyson bonus damage trait stays as well, but this time I've added Viral Engines Overload, which can disable engines every 30 seconds, and Tactical Precision, which gets me another 15 accuracy. I'm not sure if I talked about active space abilities last time because I didn't have them all unlocked yet, but I will now. Anti-time disentanglement is very good, a chance to hold and a good slow effect as well. Sensor interference platform is also quite useful. It will take a lot of outgoing damage off of your enemies if you drop it while they're shooting at you or teammate, as long as you stay within 10 kilometers of it. This is why in some of my footage you'll see me manually target these when they get dropped, because taking them out is important for keeping up outgoing damage. Force Challenge has a disable effect not shown on the tooltip. This is the gold beam that pulls enemy ships towards you. This can be used a number of ways: to pull an escaping enemy ship into your teammates' gravity wells, or to disable their abilities for a moment and change their direction suddenly so you can escape their attack if used defensively. Quantum Singularity Manipulation. There's a 3-second delay, but it gives us 5 seconds of a perfect cloak. This can be useful for staying elusive and avoiding incoming fire. Also, it grants us 100 to all science kills, including Perception, so it can be used offensively too against stealth targets. Refacting Tetryon Cascade is not really worth slotting. Maybe it could be used to kill a few hangar pets, but that's about it. The tethered asteroid is a bit situational, but basically it creates a 3-kilometer sphere around your ship that disables pilot maneuvers. This can be useful if fighting another pilot ship and you're able to stay close to them, but it's really a special case. Here's my bridge officer layout for this build. I'll still use the exact same layout when I switch to dual beam banks, so this should be pretty solid. The first thing is, I'm not using many tactical abilities. We really don't want much more than this. Engineering-wise, I'm cycling emergency power to engines with emergency power to shields. I could reverse these positions and do fine as well, or alternatively, I could slot emergency power to weapons instead of shields to keep my power and damage up, since I don't have much in the way of weapon power cost reduction. Engineering team is critical for cleansing subsystem disables like viral engines and for clearing the Oxysif Placate. The Lieutenant Commander Science Station gets us jam sensors and science team just like before, but a nice bonus of using Photonic Officer 2 instead of 1. Since I'll never have Boimlers on this account, this helps ensure my cooldowns stay as close to global as possible. The Command Pilot Station. I'm using Pilot Team 1 mainly for its immunity to movement debuffs, and Attack Pattern Lambda 2. Lambda gives us a huge accuracy and perception boost, so our weapons are staying on target and it helps us deal with intel and Exodus. This is the best offensive attack pattern. It's too bad we can't use Lambda 3 and keep Beam Overload 3, but that's the trade-off of this build. The commander slot I'm using Hold Together 3. This clears some debuffs, but I usually only use it when my temporary hull is gone because it heals as well and gives us some damage resistance if we're in trouble. This could be replaced for Clean Getaway 3 for more speed, or even Attack Pattern Omega, which adds some damage, defense, and mobility. Omega just has the disadvantage of being a maximum 50% uptime since it has a 30-second global and only lasts 15 seconds. Omega also shares a cooldown with Attack Pattern Lambda, so you have to make a decision between which of those two to use. Those with sharp eyes will also notice, and this is the change I'm the most excited about, I dropped Auxiliary to Dampeners, and I replaced it with Auxiliary to Structural Integrity Field. The reason for this was I was finally able to acquire the Placate Duty Officer. This officer adds a Placate effect to Auxiliary to Structural. Basically, I should be able to activate Oxysif roughly every 10 seconds, and the first person to attack my ship will get placated for 4 seconds. This placate can be cleared with the engineering team of course, but otherwise it is a fixed 4 seconds, not reduced by my enemy's control skill. My other two placates, Jam Sensors and Pseudo Submission, are both drastically shortened by control skill, so this is a huge advantage to have. Overall, I'm super pleased. I've obtained a pilot ship, an epic token for Cold-Hearted, and now the Placate Duty Officer. This build is shaping up to be much better than expected. I still have quite a ways to go as far as grinding out some traits, a few other bits and pieces to gather up, but I'm looking forward to how this build will perform in the future. Stay tuned for a free-to-play science build as well, thanks to this ship's trait. The main limitation at this point is gathering up some footage of these builds actually being used in PvP combat. You can bet the next Arena Endeavor I'll be flying them constantly, but until then I only have a few clips of some private matches amongst my fleet mates. I'm way behind them in terms of damage, and lacking Zal means I have to fly extra careful, but considering some of them are hundreds of dollars into their builds, I'm quite proud of the performance, and it'll only get better as my outgoing damage increases. Thanks for watching. Here's a few condensed clips from recent arena matches done with this build in its current state. So in this clip I'm trying to pick on the weakest target. So I'm focusing on this guy and I fly in and kind of misfire my beam overload and immediately get attacked by their dogfighter. So I'm in a bit of trouble. I do a little pilot roll there to dodge some damage, but then I cut away because I know he's chasing me, and I'm able to build up just enough temporary hull here to activate hull image refractors, which normally I would never recommend activating, but I didn't really have any choice there. It was a last resort, and it happens to work out. I'm able to cloak and heal. Again, here I'm focusing on what I think is a target I might actually be able to score a kill on. I'm the only dogfighter on my team, so we're really lacking in damage this match. I have to kind of slip away there, but I'm able to come back in here and land a few more big hits. But I take some more incoming damage. I have to teleport there to get out of some holds. I'm still staying on target, but ultimately I get caught in a constriction anchor right here and a parasitic ice, My abilities are kind of on cooldown. I don't have any escape consoles left. I'm not going to be able to get out of it, and their escort flies by and kills me. So that's why it's always good to have at least a couple of escape consoles available for that situation. Here I am again trying to score a kill on that same target, same spot, and I'm able to actually land some big hits here and score the kill just in time before getting held down, and I actually slip out of that. I use the Placate from Strategist. I'm stuck in the ice here, but I'm able to activate Whole Image Refractors and sort of stealth. Another kind of lucky break there. I really should have died. And then I actually get sort of snooped out here. The science ship touches me with a repulsor beam, pushes me, and that breaks me out of the ice. And I'm able to start moving again, but my teammate who flew over to try to help me out ends up getting killed, so that's still a net loss for the team there. So I kind of gather up that other dogfighter is behind me hitting me. I kind of panic teleport there. I probably should have saved that. And I know he's still behind me, and I'm looking at where the science ship is here. And I get hit again, so I actually fluidic phase to get far enough away that I'm not killed there. And then turn to rejoin the fight. This is another match. This one's a little bit more, slightly more even teams. I call their science ship as the target and fly in and start opening fire. And that was a sub-nuke. Here he drops his pet. I'm trying to kill that. The Nakul ships have a pet. Anytime that pet is out, they're immune to damage. So if you see that drop, you have to kill it as quickly as possible. Here I get force challenge. I actually force challenge him in return to avoid getting caught in trouble there. And I'm doing my best to do damage, but I'm kind of struggling to score the killing blow here alone. I notice that my teammate is not attacking my target. He's attacking the carrier in the middle. So I actually change targets and I start shooting at his target as well. And this is actually the first match that I ever played in this ship, so I'm still kind of getting used to flying it. It's not quite as maneuverable as the usual pilot ship that I fly, but I'm still sort of adapting and starting to stay a little bit closer and focus fire on that target. I fly right through the spam there. Luckily didn't get hurt too badly, but that was a pretty risky move. And their dogfighter is hounding me. I'm fairly low on health and have to kind of evade him. But I am able to come back around here and score just barely the killing blow on the carrier, and then I have to teleport to get out of that tractor beam and heal up. In this next clip I get caught in another constriction anchor and plasma storm, and I'm able to jump out with my fluidic decoupler. It helps me sort of reposition. I rejoin my teammate here. And now we're chasing the science ship again. But we kind of split targets. We're a little discombobulated here. I have to teleport to get out of that spam. I'm iced, but I'm able to keep moving. I go back up and I turn to focus the science ship, and there's the pet. And if you notice here, he dropped the pet and the sensor interference platform. So I'm actually doing less damage right now to that pet, which is why it's so hard for me to finish it off here. And then I switch over to the interference platform and kill that, and then return to attacking. But that was a pretty smart move to drop both of those at the same time. There, the two of us together were able to hit that science ship down to Zal. Right here he uses the Tippler cylinder, temporal backstep. And then he teleports forward with the Picard maneuver, it looks like there. So he's visible visually, but I can't actually see him as a target. But I'm able to reacquire and stay on track. I'm placated here and sort of looking, and then I come back around. We've kind of broken off the target again. But I'm doing my best to stay on the main target. I get a little bit of help here with some extra damage. But we're definitely struggling to take this guy down. So I just keep chasing, trying to stay on the science ship. He's pretty low here, so I feel like we have a pretty good opportunity while he's still Zald to finish him off. And I'm able to actually score that killing blow right there as he comes across. And the next clip here, I'm still staying on the science ship, but I actually get held up in ice here, so I'm in trouble. I teleport to get out of it. And I'm able to slip away and rejoin my teammate. I'm actually confused at the end of it, and I end up shooting him for a second, but luckily didn't do very much damage. And here I get held down in Psi Spam. I'm in a Tholian web, and all my abilities are deactivated, and I'm able to just barely get off the fluidic decoupler, which phases me out. I hit 2% hold there, but I slip away just in time, hit Science Team to clear the debuffs, and I'm able to heal up, and Ray, my healer, here also assists, and I'm already back up to 100% pretty quickly. And this one we're kind of hitting the ceiling of the map. I'm chasing, I do a nice dodge there, and I dodge that phaser lance, kind of felt it coming. And then I come back around, and the ice actually catches up to me here and stops me. And I'm able to teleport out of that with the Tridector Warp Core and break that ice. So those are just some examples of, you know, when to use certain powers, and there's a couple of times in those examples, you know, where I needed maybe another escape or another control, cleanse, or immunity, something to get out of those sort of sticky situations. Because there were a couple times, like there right at the end, if the other team had been a little bit more coordinated, as soon as I got stuck in the ice, they would have killed me. But it's all about practice and sort of adjusting your build. You know, if I'm up against a team and none of them are control ships, then, you know, I don't need to bring as many of those types of consoles. If I go and there's a control ship on the other side, it makes sense to sort of prepare. And you can change gear. I mean, sometimes I even evasive away during combat and switch gear and then fly back in, just because it's always being able to adapt to changing situations is always a good skill to have, especially in a PvP scenario where you never really know exactly what the other team is going to do. So thank you for watching.